Hello. Hello, TJers. This is Debbie Carter, and I'm delighted to be doing an interview this afternoon with the lovely Noorie Sarsen. Noorie is the head honcho at Saffron Interactive, previously a partner at KPMG, in charge of people services. I believe that's correct, isn't it, Noorie?
That's correct.
And we're going to be talking about the current skills shortages, the problems that we are facing as L&D professionals in dealing with a whole raft of new problems caused by not only the pandemic but also the increasing speed of change, which was there pre-pandemic but has been accelerated by the problems of COVID-19. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on introductions. I really want to get us talking to Noorie as quickly as possible. Now, Noorie, I mean, we've gone through this period of massive change, and I'm sure that many organisations and their leaders are really struggling to know where to go. Have you any ideas or any advice you can give to those leaders who are struggling at the moment?
Sure. Well, clearly the thing that's on most people's minds at the moment in terms of leadership is just the complexity of the world and, as you said, the pace of change. And reskilling and upskilling is clearly at the top of the agenda. In fact, it's really fortuitous because today we've actually, the global sentiment survey that Don Taylor does annually has just been released today. And again, on the top of the agenda is the reskilling and upskilling concern at, way past the other issues that are top of mind at the moment. So at 12.9% is that reskilling and upskilling agenda. And, that was obviously there last year as well, and it's fallen a little bit in percentage, but it's still, ahead of the other things that are of concern. And I suppose with the reskilling and upskilling, what's got to be looked at is enabling individuals to be able to do that within the organisations themselves. So, and this is really, I think, the biggest problem that leaders have at the moment. So in terms of focus, that's where if I was the leader of a large organisation, that's where I'd be spending my money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about actually having the ability, the tools, the skills to actually evaluate what you've actually got within your organisation, because so many people they're talking about the Great Resignation. I think it's become a bit of a cliche, but I think it is true that people are making very, very big decisions about where they want to be. So it's even more important to know what talent you have and what its potential is within your organisations. Yeah, great. So given that crisis, what part of that does coaching play in actually bringing about some change in the skills agenda and actually in that reskilling and upskilling area?
Yeah, well, traditionally coaching has always been, if you like, the purview of the senior executive. When there's volatility, when there's a lot of disruption in the marketplace, leadership and executive coaching is used to really try and fight through that noise for leadership so that they can set direction. But that's actually, that's a feature of life now for absolutely everyone. There's a push to be able to retrain, to reskill, to upskill, as a push to understand where the future of jobs lies. And there's all of this noise around that. There's so much that's actually available that, you know, is being pushed at individuals, and they have that same noise to actually try and fight through. So coaching is appropriate now for absolutely everyone, and I think it can firmly help in terms of the reskilling and skilling agenda quite a lot, because it can really provide those clear roadmaps or pathways, those development pathways that help individuals define, you know, what they want to do and how they want to do it as well. And that actually feeds in a little bit to the second element that's in Don's survey about collaborative and social learning and personalisation and adaptive delivery. And this is all actually about becoming self-determined learners. And I don't mean self-directed here, I mean self-determined learners. Because what organisations need are really people that can adapt amazingly quickly and find problems to solutions. So it's not training for a particular situation, but it's actually training for lots of situations that may come up, and having the problem-solving skills, becoming synthesizers of information, so being able to apply that learning in different ways and different formats. And that's what's really needed in the reskilling agenda. And I think it's actually how people naturally learn. If you think about us as children, we learn by doing, by experimentation, by getting things wrong. And suddenly as adults, we're treated in a completely different way. And that's how we actually master things. It's by, you know, trying things out. It's by, you know, that thirst for curiosity that we often used to have as children. We don't seem to be able to generate that as adults. But given the time and given the space and given the tools, I think that coaching can actually really unleash that inner self-determination and that curiosity that we often had as children, and can really help increase productivity as well as the will and motivation to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems almost, you know, going back to the first point she made there, was that actually it was the domain of the executive, but it's sort of almost like there's a bit of equity coming into coaching in that it's being used more broadly. And also, I should imagine it's a very important part of getting people to unlearn things that are not useful anymore. I mean, because there must be quite a lot of that around. And actually being able to break people of habits that aren't useful. Have you any examples of that sort of thing, you know, that sort of, those sorts of things happening in organisations perhaps at the moment?
I think unlearning is actually, we always talk about learning, but it's a really important point that you've brought up there, because, you know, to unlearn a habit and learn a new one actually takes an enormous amount of cognitive energy. And I think one of my colleagues actually recently did a talk on how to ride a bicycle backwards and whether that would actually work. So, and it did, but it took a really long time and a lot of practice to actually make that happen as an experiment. And if we think about the things that we do automatically at work, imagine having to change that. But I think that, again, it's really about what we call deliberate practice, and practicing the new behaviours in a specific way that is going to stretch people and scaffolds on the learning that they've already acquired, can really actually accelerate skills acquisition. And I think that coaching has a really big part to play in that.
Yeah.
And going back to your point about coaching for everyone. I think that the current situation and the pandemic, you know, that live coaching went to essentially e-coaching. And again, you know, we're all innovators, and now there is even more innovation around that. So there are companies such as Mershon, a Coaching Hub, etc., that are really starting to use technology to provide coaching on a much more mass basis, making it affordable for the general population. Some of these are sort of AI enabled, and actually what we've done is create a AI enabled video bot that has already been tested in the market, in the mass market, for coaching, and has actually improved confidence by 92%, increased and lessened concern for the future by significant amounts as well. So these things can have a really immediate impact on an organisation in terms of being able to then utilise the skills of existing staff, because as we know, you know, the skills that are needed in organisations are just not out there in people already. So hiring is no longer a strategy that can just keep up with the demand that an organisation has. That reskilling and upskilling has to happen. And if we also think about what the government is, I think, affectionately calling the silver economy, you know, older workers have, especially in Europe, for the last sort of 10 years, been offered midlife skills reviews. And that's something that we don't often tend to do, although just very recently, I know an insurance company have actually made a midlife skills review free to anyone that wants to take it, which I think is a really good way of looking at transferable skills and then sort of deciding on what do you want to do to upskill and to reskill your existing base of skills for the new economy.
I mean, the two things that I find interesting from what you've just said is the fact that the idea that, you know, we've got to audit almost our talent within our organisations, and there are tools out there to help us do that, whether it's surveying the talent or getting people to have conversations or whatever. You know, this is what a lot of organisations are going to have to do in order to keep themselves afloat. But also, when you talked about the importance of technology, and the robot coach, do you think introducing these conceptual ideas of, you know, the robot, which I think a lot of people are quite worried about, that these technological advances are going to take away their jobs, but actually that we can hopefully encourage them that it isn't going to, it's just going to support them in their work so that they can actually do bigger and better things, hopefully. Do you think that that type of attitude may prevail?
I think so. I think people are seeing, you know, just in their everyday consumer lives, the benefits of technology and how easily they can do things. I think jobs will change. There's no doubt that some will completely disappear. But I think it's an opportunity for everyone, really, to find what it is that they really want to do. I mean, this big resignation, as you know, is not just about people leaving work completely, but actually really finding what suits them personally. And the video bot that I mentioned, the coaching bot that I mentioned, we've actually used Mark Savicas's career construction theory, and this is really important because it's the basis of how people when you have workplace trauma like the pandemic or digital disruption, actually best build their careers. And it includes that kind of thinking, and it's got there in there about how do you build confidence, because once you have confidence, then you feel control, and it's about these four C's, you know, confidence, control, and the control element and the confidence element obviously then puts you on that roadmap. But first of all, you have to have concern, and the concern for your future. And as long as we can use, you know, real life coaches, we can use organisations, and making people aware and communicating that these changes are coming, but that these are actually opportunities for people to start thinking about what they want to do long term to secure their futures as well as the companies. I think that's a positive conversation to be having with workforces now.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's an important conversation that we need to have, but it could be quite a slow conversation. Is there any way that we can perhaps accelerate these processes? Because, you know, everything around us is changing almost by the minute, it seems to me. I mean, the amount of notifications you get in a day telling us about changes in government initiatives is just mind-boggling. So, you know, how do we accelerate all of this to something that becomes really useful?
Yeah. Well, I think technology can actually help here. For one thing, it obviously allows that scale, and allows, you know, either, especially now with artificial intelligence, you can actually have real life conversations. And what we've found through the work that we've done in learning or digital solutions really has been that even the most sensitive subjects, people actually like exploring those initially through a medium that is not human. A digital medium actually helps them to address those issues that they may not be wanting to speak to someone about because they're scared of being judged. We're all scared of being judged, and so, but having a natural conversation with someone, you know, on the phone that you can speak to, really does help unlock that fear of being judged and fear of saying the wrong thing. And so using AI technology and the video bot technology that we've used means that you're not looking at a robot or an avatar or a simulated person. You're actually looking at a real person, but there's not a real person behind the scenes. It's actually a video bot that is responding to the way that you're speaking, remembering what you're saying and coming back with those conversations, motivating you 24/7, and also then able to alert maybe your line manager or someone else to say, you know, you might want to now check in with your coachee or your mentee. So I think that that kind of technology, in combination with really good learning, really good skills assessments, can really accelerate people's motivations to learn. Because as you said, all those tools are out there already. It's a case of, how do I actually know what's right for me? And so having a guided conversation to find what's right for you, and then making it frictionless to actually get there and use them, I think is absolutely key.
Yeah, I like the idea around that you take you use the technology, if you like, or the robot to help people explore things that they feel may have an element of judgment on the other person's part, so they can feel more comfortable possibly around it, and then it can be then taken on by somebody human to explore it in greater detail. Does the technology have the capacity to flag up if they feel there is something worrying in the individual's life, because we're talking a lot these days about stress and mental health. I mean, do you have systems in place that, if the conversations are going in particular directions, that perhaps there's another intervention?
Yeah, so I mean, safeguarding is one element, but yeah, the bots can actually detect sentiment, so they can detect if you're worried, if you're concerned. They can check in on you if you haven't been in the platform for a little while, or in fact you might be doing too much. We had one person who was in the platform for 1800 minutes in a very few days, which is quite extraordinary, really. So they can be doing a bit too much and become be using it in the wrong way. But all of those things, yes, can be alerted, and then measures can be taken externally. But I think what you were alluding to is the combination of human and technology, and I think that is what sort of turns the to performance into outperformance. Because people will get there using digital, and good digital can accelerate skills, but really the icing on the cake, the thing that kind of then makes it a virtuous circle, is really that human element. And that's borne out because from the social learning sort of criteria that's second on the survey this year. And we've all known how we've missed that social element over the pandemic, especially.
Absolutely.
And social learning, we are social animals, so social learning is a key part of seeing things from a different lens, having diversity and inclusion, diversity of thought in everything that we do. So definitely that human element is needed.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, as much as we all appreciate that we've got to know more about analytics and technology, I think certainly the human touch is so important. I mean, you get so much more. You get a lot of energy from other people and ideas, and you need them to bounce ideas off. But it's great that we've got so many other tools at our disposal now, which enable us to learn more about ourselves, basically, because that's what coaching is really about, is raising our self-awareness and making us able to move forward. So have you got any sort of last words around where you see coaching going in the next 12 months? Because an awful lot can happen in 12 months right now. By the time Don does his next global sentiment survey, I think coaching and mentoring could be much further up the list, because I think it is very central to the human condition. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. So Josh Burson, who a lot of people follow, has really throughout 2021, beginning of 2022 now, really been talking about the learning innovations in coaching, and how technology can essentially make that available now to the masses, so that it's not just for the leadership track. And if you think about it, if you want to become an elite athlete, you are going to need your coach. So if we're going to get good at anything, whether it's life skills or performance at work, we can't really harm ourselves with coaching. And most organisations, so I think this is the Institute of Coaching Federation, 86% of organisations have seen an upturn in performance, up to 70% performance increases through coaching. So the return on investment is really high from that coaching. But now being able to make it available to everyone, I think, is really exciting.
Yeah, I must agree. I think it has the potential to change so much lives and organisations if it's managed and conducted really well. Noorie, it's been an absolute pleasure. So insightful, and thank you again for joining us this afternoon. And I hope all goes well with the business and with your own approach to coaching, which I think is highly recommended. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you.